Well, my name is Elias Hendricks. I retired from AT&T Bell South, many years ago. And we started our own daycare business and real estate business. And that led to my retirement from the telephone company. And I guess I'm self-employed ever since. So.
Yeah, the real estate thing. I was real. We had a couple of conversations, and I was just I was always interested in your story and how you got there. I remember you telling me that you came from up north for school. You went up north for school, right?
Yeah, we moved from Birmingham. I went to first couple of years elementary school here, and then we moved to uh, Chicago. Well, my family split up, and my dad was here in Birmingham, and my mother and my sister and I moved to Chicago. And from about third and a half grade on through high school, I would spend school time in Chicago and get on a train, come back to Birmingham, spend the summers with my dad and his family. So I grew up in two places. And most people in Birmingham think I grew up in Birmingham because they would see me every summer. They just thought I went to another school. So, uh, but if you didn't come in my daddy's business, you never knew me because that's where I was 24/7,
Right.
working in the cafe. So.
Okay, and that's what your dad did his whole
Yeah, my
life.
dad ran well, we started out, the family had Hendricks Brothers, which was a cafe on one side and a grocery store on the other side. That was back, Jesus, 54, 55, somewhere up in there, 53, 50, somewhere up in there. Well, let's say probably around 53. Real tough time for black folk in business, but the family banded together and opened a place on 16th Street, right down from a Sipco plant. And so we had a meat and three and regular, wasn't no McDonald's, so we had hamburgers, hot dogs, you know, lunch, meat and three. Dad was in, and barbecue. So that was Hendricks Brothers, and it was open late night. We were actually open all night long on Fridays. Uh, and Then my dad branched out on his own and opened Bud's Deli. My wife teases me because the only deli part of it was that we were famous for our pig ear sandwiches. I tell everybody I went through college on the ear, on listeners as they called them. But my dad moved from where the McDonald's is on Finley Avenue, uh, was where my daddy's place was originally. And then he moved up to 16th Street uh, on the main drag and opened a little rib joint and meat and three called Bud's Deli. It was still Bud's Deli, but it was on 16th Street. So all my life, ever since about the first grade, my people have been in entrepreneurs. So
So the real estate business, did it start with you?
the real estate business was an. I lived in Memphis before they developed the riverfront. Then we moved to New Jersey, and I was up there in Jersey when they developed Harlem, Hoboken, and Newark. They started renovating Newark and Elizabeth. So I saw this trend of urban development. And so when we got to Birmingham, um, we had two lucky strokes. First thing was I came at a time moving from Jersey when all the steel executives were leaving. And so there was wonderful housing available for real cheap. So I was able to get in and get a really great house in Mountain Brook. Um, but I'm not a suburban kind of guy. I'm really an urban animal. Cat, rat, dog. That's the only animals I know about. No chipmunks and things on the roof going scratch, scratch, scratch to the night, and crickets in your house. It just drove me crazy. So I was happy to try to move back into a more urban environment. So when I saw downtown development, I got with Mike Calvert, Operation New Birmingham, back in the day, and participated with them and saw what was going on. And it was the same movement that I saw in Memphis, in Newark, and Hoboken. And I said, well, I know how this is going to go. So I need to sort of get into, acquire some of this real estate while it's little or nothing. Because it was like, I bought 2 buildings downtown where I put the daycare for $125,000 back in the day. So I saw that, and I knew it was coming. I knew it would be in the next 10 years I was going to be here. At that point, I'd had 2 more kids, and so I was going to be here permanently. All our folk, my wife is from Memphis. All our folk were getting older, so we needed to be closer. So it was a great time. Everything sort of came together. But for real estate, I realized that the city was developing. And the way to deal with that is to sort of get in and try to acquire, pieces of real estate that appreciate in value, and have some income potential and all of that good stuff. And being an urban animal, I was not afraid of the buildings downtown. Yeah. I knew what that was going to be. I said, Jesus, because in Memphis, I was offered, if I was going to stay, that was before I decided to move to Jersey to headquarters, a building downtown Memphis, and the guy was going to give me the building it was the old Britland cafeteria, and he was going to give me the building for $120,000, and then stay in the building with his computer. It was a computer guy, and we talked, and he was going to stay in the building and pay me rent so that I could capitalize and get in the building. And that's when I had decided I was going to move to New Jersey. And also, if you go to Memphis, before you get to Memphis, there's all kind of casinos and stuff. I was in a Civitan group, and they kept telling me to buy land on this strip in Mississippi. And I'm going like, I ain't buying no land in Mississippi. And they said, we can't tell you what's getting ready to happen, but something's getting ready to happen. You need to come down and buy some of these 20-acre farms and stuff. I'm going like, no. That's where they have all the casinos now. They couldn't tell me. So I saw all of that happening and missed all of those opportunities. When I got to Birmingham, I said, okay, we're going to take advantage of this. Yeah. So SBA had this hierarchy where they were trying to encourage more minority, and minority in that time was defined as female. Businesses. So we realized that, and my wife's got an MBA also, so we put everything in her name because it was easier for her to get the loan. Right. And we used the SBA 504, 10% down, wonderful program, and borrowed money. When we first started, I was in the daycare business because we had twins, and they were 1, actually. And we looked around for daycare, and there just wasn't anything that really met our standards because we had moved from New Jersey, and one child that I had gone to the first Italian Montessori school in the United States. So the very best daycare in the newest technology in the United States when we lived in Jersey. So we knew the value of daycare. And when we looked around, there wasn't really anything in Birmingham at the time, 30-something years ago, that met our standards. And we also wanted to come up with a new concept. We were at a card party, and our friends were saying that, one of the biggest problems they have, because they had kids that were a little bit older than my twins, was finding daycare that met their standards and didn't really give off a whole lot of negative vibes for black kids. Bottom line. You could find the place, but it's like, 90% white, you could afford it. But the subliminal messages and cultural differences at the time in Birmingham were not appreciated enough for people to be aware of them or sensitive to them. And so we saw all of that, having come from Jersey where it was a different environment. And so that made us go into daycare. I happened to go to, and this shows you personal relationships, I happened to go to Leadership Birmingham with a great guy, Benny LaRussa, who was one of the Brunos and had First Commercial Bank. And I kept him up one night, all night long, saying, people don't, I've been working in Birmingham and I just can't get a break. The banks don't do right, blah, 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 blah. He said, if you let me go to sleep and you do 5 years of books that are audited, I'm gonna tell you, you gotta have audited books for 5 years, gotta be clean, gotta show a profit. Come in and I promise you, I'm gonna treat you like I treat everybody else. So at the end of the 5 years, he took me by the hand, walked me over to the commercial lending guy and said, this is Elias. I promised him that he would be treated like everybody else. And it was a total revelation. Didn't have to beg, just go in with a decent proposal, and they helped us develop our business.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of developing, around the time where Birmingham was offered the international airport, you know anything about that?
I do. I had worked with, I didn't know about the first part of it, but I was on the city council when the second wave of it came through. And Maynard Jackson, I worked on Maynard Jackson's campaign when I was in college. Me and my roommate were his youth liaisons when he ran for vice mayor the first time. And so the second go round, they were trying to expand the runway so they could do freight. And this was like FedEx and all, what's in Memphis should have been in Birmingham, plus half of the freight that's in Atlanta, because they wanted to expand the passenger piece in Atlanta, and they've become the busiest airport in the country. Mm-hmm. But they were running out of room for freight. So Birmingham is centrally located, and they were trying to get the freight here, but then they were fighting the extension of the runway because the people said they didn't want to lose East Lake Park, like they couldn't put a park somewhere else around here. Right. So they fought until all of the people who had property over there just abandoned it. And so it ended up being where they could have, at this point, they can go over there probably and just flatten half of that stuff now and do whatever they should have done before. But they fought it tooth and nail. We don't want that over here. And then it was a whole black-white thing because it was mostly white people in that area, and they thought the black people were trying to force them out. And it just got to be foolishness. Nobody really looked at the big picture. And another thing I discovered was that the big businesses in this town didn't want that kind of business being a majority business or big business in this town, because a rising tide raises all ships. And what happened in Atlanta when they did the big airport thing, everybody, salaries went up, it became, and a lot of the city founders and the old money didn't want to do that because it would lose the damn near free labor that they had here in Birmingham, the lower labor costs. Because they paid, even major corporations like AT&T paid sometimes 30% less in the South than they did in the North. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to keep those rates low. But back to the airport. I got a call one day from somebody I know, I'm not going to say in Atlanta, was saying that, hey, what's going wrong with y'all? We trying to give y'all this freight business, and what is it with y'all? Why can't y'all expand the doggone runway? Mm-hmm. And I got to looking into it and going like, what in the world? Because Birmingham, in 1968, there was a study called the McManus study, when all of the steel mills were closing, and they wanted to figure out what was the highest and best use for Birmingham. And really, the highest and best use was a distribution center. The original plan was to go Birmingham, flood Village Creek all the way to that rock quarry on Arkadelphia, have like what they got down in Mobile, where you can take stuff off the barge, put it on the trucks, and get it to Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta in 2 hours. That's why I-20, with the thing to Memphis, the big highway to Memphis, was sort of like pushed. So Birmingham was supposed to be, which makes sense, we're central. We could have had the airport, we're central. We still can be more central because they're trying to get the rapid rail from New Orleans to Atlanta. If that happens, Birmingham property values, especially all that property around the lakes and stuff like that, will be like suburban Atlanta, because you'll be able to get to Atlanta in less than an hour or less on a rapid rail.
And they giving them a lot of hell right now for the rapid rail, ain't it?
Yeah, well, they keep delaying it for various reasons. First, it was that the railroad was not set up with the terminal and all of that. And we went through several iterations, if everybody remember, of the bus terminal with the rail terminal and changing it and putting it back together again. But they finally fixed that part of it. But that's federal money. That's not really local money that's going to do that, to fix that track and make that happen. But Atlanta's ready. Birmingham and Alabama, not so much, Yeah. But it would really revolutionize this whole corridor.
So you think that stage that we passed up on with the airport, we got another opportunity with this rail to kind of...
You got another opportunity to sort of be a major hub on the rail. Now, as I get older, I look around, and one of the big things that we're failing to see is that it is going to be impossible for Birmingham to do anything until we stop all of this balkanization. Homewood, Vestavia Hills, Hoover, Mountain Brook. I'm missing some. But just think about it. We got all these little municipalities with all these duplications of police and schools and all of that. It's crazy. If we consolidate it in the county like it is in Atlanta, the county becomes the city like it is in Memphis, we would grow a lot faster. Now, one of the things that people are failing to see is that we're getting ready to lose our major metro status. When we do that, a lot of federal money will dry up for Birmingham. And the folk in Huntsville, the folk in Mobile are moving right ahead, all around us. And the state legislature and our state legislators act like they can't do nothing for Birmingham, especially for Birmingham proper, but take from us, like the waterworks. So we have got to start being a lot more sophisticated. We got to stop hearing from people that I'm down there and I'm a Democrat and I can't do nothing. Well, that ain't necessarily true. You can take one vote and change stuff if you use that vote strategically. And we got folk that's been down there long enough to really be able to finesse some of this. Right. So why isn't it happening? And why is it that lowly little me with, very little political experience can see this and you can't? We need bond money. Who's our lobbyists? And why don't we get more federal bond money? These are questions that are a lot higher level questions, and we sit here fighting over fixing a pothole in the street. That's crazy. We, as a city, are going to have to come together where the more sophisticated and skilled people are participating in the city, and it's happening through the back door because more young people are moving and making an urban environment in the city. And, moving to Woodlawn, moving to Bush Hills, moving to Norwood, and it's becoming like an urban environment. Right. So that's going to help. but it may come too late. Well, I can only say that when I was on the city council, we were having this big controversy about water treatment plants. And when I sat down with the guy that was the strategic planner for the waterworks, and I was reading the charts, and I said, well, what's this line? And there's a line going, the costs were going like this, and there was something that was steady. He said, well, Birmingham has met all the federal requirements, and that's Birmingham's line there. This is south of town. I said, well, how do they pay for that, being smaller municipalities? Well, they get Birmingham to participate. Okay, that whole controversy, you remember the controversy about putting the sewer line underneath the Cahaba River where we get our water from? Mm-hmm. Okay, the federal grant was written in such a way that all contiguous communities had to pay for it. And I kept wondering, why are they trying to go under and put the thing on the Birmingham side when they can just build it on the other side of the river and not have to, pollute the river? Mm-hmm. Well, come to find out that if they did that, then Birmingham would not be paying. It would be the people on the other side, Leeds, Vestavia, and all of them would have to pay for that treatment plant. We wouldn't have to pay for it because we would not be a contiguous community. We wouldn't be adjoining. So they were pulling it back over there so Birmingham could help pay for it, even though Birmingham sewer requirements have been done for years because we were a major metro and the federal government made us do it. It's a lot of things that are tied up in major metro that people don't understand. Like, have you ever wondered why there's never any crime reported in Mountain Brook or Vestavia or any of those places? No robberies. Now, that's where all the money is. Now, doggone well that robberies and other kinds of stuff happening, snatching the purses and that kind of stuff, and you never hear about it. You know why? Because they're not a major metro. They don't have to report. They're not mandated to report their crimes. We, as a major metro, are mandated to report. So it's like everything is happening in Birmingham. Ain't nothing happening nowhere else,
Don't that throw statistics and don't that throw everything off on how we deal with our area?
It does. It does everything in terms of insurance. It does anything in terms of property values. And the money people in this town don't ever want to share. They want to keep 100% of the money, okay? Therefore, they would denigrate an area like Inslee. There's no reason why Inslee shouldn't be re-gentrified just like Woodlawn and Bush Hills and all of that with these big old mansion-y houses over here. But every time you see a crime statistic, what does it say? Inslee, right? Yeah. Even though it's in Birmingham, everybody's got. It could be in Bellevue, it could be anywhere. It could be on 3rd Avenue, but it's Inslee. Mm-hmm. Well, what they do is that they do that to a community until the property values go zoomp, and then the big corporation buy up everything and resell it for these prices and at a profit. They do that everywhere. Yeah. Remember Smithfield before? They shut down my little cheap fish place over there in Smithfield because there was some murder that happened that have nothing to do with the restaurant, but they right across from Birmingham Southern, remember? Mm-hmm. They shut those people down. They moved down on 3rd.
Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong. Okay. Yeah. And that didn't have nothing to do with Hong Kong seafood. But everything wrong was happening in Smithfield. Come to find out, they buying up Bush Hills. They trying to buy up College Hills. Mm-hmm. And switch it over. So now it's Woodlawn. They've given us the north side of First Avenue, south side of First Avenue. They're buying it and redoing all those big old houses in Woodlawn. They're going to go on the south side all the way up to Ruffner Mountain. Yeah. Birmingham is in a valley. Anything that's on a hill is a premium. Yeah. The last hill to be developed is the Flint Ridge, which goes from Flint Ridge at the U.S. Steel all the way across to Norwood. That's the last hill to really be developed. Yeah. So you can see that all along there, people are buying things, beautiful neighborhoods like Inslee Highlands. If I was a young man, I'd buy everything I could in Inslee Highlands and Bush Hills, Norwood. I'd be buying everything I could in those areas because those are the last hills. And they're beautiful. The housing stock is wonderful. It's hard to mess up brick, you know?
So, as far as end game, like, what would you suggest? What advice would you give me? You know me. You know I've been trying to get.
I would advise any young person, if you paying $1,000 to $1,500 in rent, stop it. Get you a house, man.
Yeah.
There's still affordable housing, and fix it up, flip it. If a young man, you shouldn't be living in a house more than 5 years. You should be buying it, flipping it, moving up. Buying it, flipping it, taking all that money, putting it into another place.
Cool.
Just keep moving. If you have commercial opportunities, look for commercial opportunities that has more than one usage, so that whatever you put in it, you can get out of it. Just be aware of what you're doing in terms of real estate, and stop with this paying off a mortgage crap as a young man. You should always use other folks' money, to upgrade until you get to that house, maybe when you get to be 50-something. And by that time, you got enough equity that you brought from all these other properties to practically pay for it.
That makes sense. Well, I ain't gonna hold you too much longer, man. I appreciate all the information.
Okay.
And I think we got some work to do.
Yeah, we do. And it's frustrating as an older man who's lived through it to know that our people don't realize that things are in cycles. My grandmother told me this, because my grandmother understood what was happening in the 60s more than my mother did. My mother was a child of the Depression. And they came out of the Depression, you gotta have things. You gotta have a freezer with 50 years worth of food in it. You gotta have things. And my grandmother was a young woman in the 20s when things opened up. The Roaring 20s. The Roaring 20s was everybody was making money, And then the Depression closed up again. And she always said in the 60s, because she was the one who was encouraging me to be involved in civil rights and all these other things, that, you need to take advantage because things are going to open up. Go to school, get an education, because there are going to be all kinds of opportunities. And when I came out in 69, there were all kinds of opportunities.
Yeah.
But now, closed back.
Yeah.
And it's hard for y'all to find jobs. It's hard for y'all to get a leg up. And they've gone back to some of the old craze. They even started making us monkeys again.
Yeah.
It's almost like Reconstruction. They denigrate any contribution we make legislatively. And, everything it's like Reconstruction. It's like they really are afraid of, like Francis Cress Welsing said, why is it they hate us more than they hate anybody else? They seem to accept the Asians. They seem to accept everybody else except us. It's because of genetic annihilation.
Yeah.
We have the power. And we're not teaching our history. We're still dependent on the schools, who are not under our control. They're under control of the State Board of Education. How many black folk on the state? I think Ms. Richardson may be the only one, right? On the State Board of Education. That determines what they learn, the books they read. They're even trying to ban some of the stuff they do. Now you got a president that's taking people's names off of buildings and stuff.
Yeah, he wilding out.
He wilding out.
Yeah.
But it's not wild. It's history. And it's sad that we are still dependent on somebody else to determine what our history is about without understanding the word. The word is his story. And you got to be the his in his story. So you got to teach. We talk about survival. Just one example. and this is maybe something that you would talk to somebody about at some point. Every damn church has got a commercial kitchen. Instead of talking about ladies on welfare, that they feeding their children junk and all this other stuff, why not let some of them ladies that survived the Depression get you in there and teach you how to make cornbread, biscuits, pancakes, healthy meals, and understanding nutritional things like collard greens with some turkey cooked in with a smoked turkey leg, sliced tomatoes, and a piece of cornbread is a complete meal. You ain't got to have fried chicken. Ain't nothing wrong with the Southern diet. The problem is we have Sunday dinner every day. Chicken was a production. You don't know about anything about that because when you came along, they were, mass producing chickens. But when I came along, you had to go out in the yard, kill the chicken, pluck the chicken in hot water, and it was a production.
Yeah.
And whether you got more than 1 or 2 pieces of it, you didn't get like 5 pieces of chicken. And then some of that had to go to the preacher. So,